Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and what a pleasure it is to be able to speak in this debate. And in the next 5 minutes, I am going to say why the member for Runnymede and Weybridge, Runnybridge and Weymede, as has been said, why he's absolutely right in putting forward this piece of legislation. I disagree slightly with the gallant member for Bracknell about the planning bill because I haven't seen anything in it yet. But what I do know is that the strength of feeling around planning in this House means that we need to have new reforms that are there that takes into account infrastructure, takes into account design, takes into account local affordability and jobs. We need to ensure that we can rebuild the faith and trust that has been lost in our planning reform system, which for too many years has let down, as so many members in this House have already said. And of course, planning doesn't sit within our remits. We know that, but we also know that day after day our inboxes are filled with concerns around planning development, the way in which it goes through local authorities, the way in which developers do what they do. And unfortunately, we have heard far too many stories of that today. The fact that developers time and time again ride roughshod over local authorities, and perhaps most importantly, they ride roughshod over our constituents who take the time to do neighbourhood plans, who take the time to fill in their views about what they want in their area. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, I can give you countless examples in my own constituency, but I am conscious of time, so I won't. But what I might just point out that in the last 3 years, in 2019, there were 474 planning breaches in South Hams. There were 561 in 2020, and in 2021 there were another 560. These aren't just individual houses, these are development sites. That is a huge amount of housing in which developers are going through and doing what they like without listening to the local authorities who do have the best interest in their constituents. We need to address this because the planning rules are there for a very specific purpose. They are there to try and build houses for our constituents. They are there to ensure that we can build for the future and allow people to get onto the housing ladder. Now, it's absolutely right from what's been put forward in this bill that we have to ensure that those who have broken the law elsewhere or who have had planning breaches are held accountable, not just in that local authority, but across the whole country, and the database is right. It's absolutely right that we look at where we can put fines on them. And I couldn't agree more with the honourable member for Hertford and Stortford, who makes the point about developers factoring in this into their prices and it gets passed on to the consumer. So if we're going to go forward on this way, how do we make sure we have a fine that is actually going to hit where it hurts and make sure that developers rethink their proposals? The second point is about planning applications until breaches have been addressed. I think it's absolutely right. In my own constituency in Totnes and South Devon, in Kingsbridge at Lox Hill, the developers have had a planning breach. They are continuing the work on the site. This is unacceptable, and the residents look on as a greenfield site is turned into a mud pit, and then development continues while we are still putting it this way. The third point I just want to make in the last minute that I have is that we have to make sure we are finding the balance to ensuring that we're still building houses, that we're still making sure that we are fulfilling the commitment to provide affordable homes and housing across the country. So there are some loopholes and some issues that I think can be tightened up in this bill, and I think the honourable member knows that. And as the member for Christchurch also said, we must find the tightened language so we can ensure that actually this isn't exploited. And he and I know in a whole host of different ranges, whether it's second homes or park homes, where housing is exploited by people who want to get more money out of people rather than actually deliver a service, a house, a style of living that should be expected for all people. We can pass this bill today, and I hope we consider doing so, but I also think we have a massive opportunity in the planning bill to put this bill in and to ensure that we can deliver something for the whole country that makes a real difference, because my constituents in Totnes and South Devon expect it. They expect us to stand up to developers. And as the honourable member for Meriden finished on his speech about developers and us coming for them, I think they need to be very careful, because the standard of what they supply for people who spend their hard-earned money is outrageous. The faults and mistakes that they make without the ability for constituents and communities to appeal is shocking. So I would say this, is that where there is the opportunity for any one of us in this place, in any part of the country, to stand up and counter the greed and the drive of property developers, I will be full square behind them as I am today. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.